Hey there, Frosty fans. This is another Frosty Friday. We're coming at you fast and live. Well, not for you, it's recorded, but here we go.
Tonight we're going to be doing a review of Superman Doomsday, the DC film that came out in 2007 based on the 1992 comic book phenomenon. There's going to be some spoilers, of course, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then stop listening now and come back after you've watched the film.
Okay, alright, well, let's start where it starts, I guess, in the beginning of the movie. It starts with, I believe, Lex Luthor doing a really weird narration about comparing Superman to a god as something that's been done all the time. Again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He didn't do any Christ imagery this time. He wasn't like on his back with his arms outstretched, looking like.
Except the very end when he's on his own memorial with his arms out. But we'll get there. Basically, Lex is digging with his project Apple Core to the center of the Earth to look for power sources for Metropolis to be even bigger deal than he is.
This is after he's cured AIDS and cancer and every other known disease.
But he hoards the cure and turns into a lifetime treatment to bump up his profit margins because I'm willing to believe Lex would sell a cure to somebody like that piecemeal to make more money. But the idea that he's cured every single disease on the planet is like a bit much.
With one finger on the pad while he's thinking, you know, like it's just they tried to make him look super intelligent, and then for the rest of the film, he's incredibly dumb. It's kind of appalling how dumb he gets, actually.
So, I also hate to say this. I hate to kick, because we got some somewhat negative things to say about this one, but which is a shame because DC, most of the animated stuff hits out of the park. As we'll continue on when we do these reviews in the coming weeks, but the voice acting for this just didn't do it for me, and I wanted it to. Lois sounded really strange, and Lex was weird.
But yeah, I didn't mind that.
It just didn't work for me.
Was it Adam Baldwin did an all right job of doing Superman?
He was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. I didn't hate the voice work. It just could have been. There's versions I prefer more. That's all. Summer Cree was in it. A couple of people that have done tons of voice work. John DiMaggio. Lots of great voice actors. Just didn't work for me.
Yeah, and Hesh was Lois Lane.
James Marsden. Oh my God, Spike. What have you fallen into? Spike from Buffy voices Lex Luthor, and granted, I would never have known because I'm used to him with his fake Manchester accent from Buffy, but still,
I think I said Alec. I meant Adam Baldwin. Forgive me.
There's a ton of Baldwins. They just grow them in a lab.
We're going to have to be a little bit more prepared next time, I think. But that's okay.
Fine. Tom Kenny as the robot was wasted. He could have done so much more.
Oh, completely.
He's SpongeBob, for frig's sakes. Anyway.
But the movie deviated incredibly from the original source material of the comic book, which I found quite surprising because of all the other DC Comics movies that we've watched, these cartoons, like, say, Superman Public Enemies, and all the Batman stuff with the Court of Owls, they adhered to the source material really closely. In this one, they threw most of it out the window just to give us a cool fight or two. Well, it didn't have the Return of Superman, which has the Force Superman. You can check that out. It's a great story. Instead, we get a Bizarro-type Superman. To have Superman fight himself, I guess. It made virtually no sense.
Let's go back just a little bit so they know where we're at. Superman, Doomsday arises, right? Mm-hmm. He trashes a bunch of stuff, and he fights Superman in Metropolis. Metropolis gets flattened, pretty much leveled.
On purpose.
And what bugs me is, initially, I'm like, oh, Doomsday's so powerful, Superman just has no control in the fight. But then when he takes him up into space, and he's steering him back down like a missile, and he crashes right back into downtown Metropolis, I'm like, and it goes off like a nuclear explosion, I'm like, really? You couldn't have had that done in an uninhabited part of the world and have, like, the news choppers fly out to see it or something? Like, it really, that just seemed lame.
Where Snyder got the idea.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It was just the amount of death that would have been in there from the fallout of all that would just be ridiculous. Superman wouldn't be regarded as a hero at all. But I guess people want to see their, disaster porn. So from that perspective, I mean, it was entertaining. Personally, I was sitting there thinking that Superman should have tried to take the fight elsewhere like he did in the books.
Well, and
it was just kind of...
And I mean, we could go on, of course, about this because it bugs both of us, but when he's punching people through buildings full of presumably people... it's a bit much.
They didn't take the time to look at the camera and say, it's uninhabited. It didn't do the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice thing, specifically.
Which is lame, but at least a little better than just killing people.
Well, don't you know that when people get off work at 5 o'clock, they abandon the city that they're in?
I know, exactly. But we could go on about that forever, so let's move on. Doomsday completely kills. I'm putting air quotes there that you can't see. I'll add some in digitally. He kills Superman, and so Superman basically dies in air quotes that you can't see that I'll add in. But he's left. The city is left without him. Lex Luthor's like, "Oh, I was supposed to kill Superman." He feels bad about it, and then Superman comes back all of a sudden to the people of Metropolis. Seems to just come back into existence. Hooray!
Yep. With no explanation whatsoever. We eventually learn, however, that he's actually a clone made by Lex Luthor because Luthor hated the idea that he had the opportunity of killing Superman himself robbed from him. He eventually makes a whole army of Superman, but he never gets to use them. The Superman that he has created, however, is morally corrupt. He ends up trying to take over Metropolis and killing people. He kills Toyman, for instance, because Toyman killed a child. So he does I guess again the Zack Snyder thing.
Well, we should mention Luthor is stupid in this, but he did put a failsafe in a little lead ball that was full of kryptonite in his brain that he had a remote control to release to kill him if he got out of control. But this Superman was smart enough to extract that from himself, so then he can, be free of Luthor's control and do what he thinks he should do.
And that apparently is to go around and be a militant leader. And
he's a fascist. He acts in this kind of like, okay, you're gonna have order at the price of any kind of humanity. It's all about order for him.
And eventually it shows that our real Superman, who was held by Lex stole the body, of course, to get the DNA to clone. I think he got the DNA from the fight scene, actually.
The blood splatter, he mentions.
Yeah. And the real Superman is brought back by one of his robots, and played, of course, by
Tom Kenny.
Yeah, and
who's not nearly as hilarious as he should have been.
The robot brings Superman back to life. They get him at 67% power, they say specifically. Mm-hmm. He has the mullet from the Return of Superman days, which I thought was a nice touch.
That's fine.
They put him in the black Superman suit, which I also thought was a nice touch.
And they explain why that suit is special. It helps absorb solar radiation while he's flying to Metropolis, and it's just anything to give him as much of his power back as they can as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and then of course the real Superman goes to fight the fascist version of himself, and it's another one of those.
He has another edge that we probably should mention though.
Oh.
Remember the kryptonite gun?
Oh, the kryptonite gun.
Right, because that becomes important later.
It's just personally, I don't like I know that it's a trope that's been around forever where superheroes fight each other because everyone wants to know who would win, Batman or Superman.
In this case, Superman or Superman.
And people want to see superheroes fight each other. They want to see them use their powers. In this case, it was Superman versus Superman, and I personally didn't find it very entertaining. By that point, I was yawning and just kind of bored with the whole idea. If they'd have stuck to the source material, it would have been a lot better, I think.
Could have done it over a couple of movies, done its real justice over 2 or 3 movies.
2 probably. Yeah, they could have done the death with the end with the funeral, which would have been a bit sad, and then they could have done the return and had the 4 Superman, which again, you guys should definitely check out.
Because to be fair, to do this material fairly, you would have to have 2 movies, I think.
Yeah. Another thing I didn't like about the film is that they didn't mention, it says DC, based on the DC characters. It doesn't mention that Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. It does not mention that Doomsday was created by Dan Jurgens. It doesn't credit any of the artists that worked on the story or any of the writers or anybody. It just says based on the DC characters. I thought that was pretty lame of DC to do.
This is an earlier film from, was it 2007? They seem to have learned a great deal about story, about just general respect for the material over the more recent outings. As we're going to see, there's going to be some that you're going to hear me lose my mind over about how happy I am with them. Like there's a couple of characters and a couple of versions that we're going to review that I will. You're gonna, oh my god, I just lose my mind. I'm so happy with them. This one was just, to me, I think you really, really didn't like it, and I was just kind of very.
I liked the score by Robert Krall. That was good, but other than that,
I wouldn't give it an official rating, but I was more negative than positive for me. I was not a big fan of this one.
I'd give it 5 bumpkins out of 7.
I give it an arbitrary number out of a random number. That's higher than the arbitrary number, a lot higher.
That's confusing. Yeah, right.
like many things in my life. And one more small nitpick, and I know this is kind of petty of me, but we're running so low on time. Is I hated the lines on Superman. He looked old. Okay.
Yeah, that was terrible. Thanks a lot, guys.
Check us out on Twitter and Patreon, and check us out at IronGate.thecomicseries.com, please.
Yep. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night or day, whatever time it is. Bye.
Oh, and stay frosty. I didn't forget this time.
We win.